Hi everyone, welcome to this discussion on why we study literature or the benefits of studying literature. Oftentimes, we are compelled to do the things we do because of a great why, the reason why we do what we do. It is in this premise that I have decided to include a discussion of the benefits of studying literature so we could know what's in it for us. Being able to know why enables us to focus better on doing what we do now so we can later enjoy the things which we really love to do. I heard from a trainer before, do what you have to do what you want to do, or something of the sort. Nevertheless, here are the benefits of studying literature. First, to benefit from the insight of others. Some of life's most important lessons are subtly expressed in our art. Embedded within literary pieces are life lessons that authors want us to learn. They may be from their own experiences, they may be from the experiences of people around them. They may also be expressed directly in the literary piece, but they may also be inferred by the reader. And not all lessons are learned by you personally, but are sometimes taken from others. It is smart that we learn from our mistakes, but it is even wiser that we learn from the mistakes of others. That way, we won't have to go through all the struggles, all the hurts, and all the disappointments, yet we still get to learn. We benefit from the insight of others. Second, to open our minds to the ambiguities in meaning. If you go through life expecting people to play by your rules, you'll only be miserable, angry, and disappointed. Something that is ambiguous is something that could have many meanings or interpretations. Literature is exactly that. It does not have only one interpretation. For ages, philosophers, critics, and scholars have argued as to how we should really interpret literature and still have not come to an agreement. Because how do we really choose how to interpret something that could be interpreted in many different ways? Beauty is relative, they say. What could be beautiful to you may not be beautiful to others, and what may be beautiful to others may not be beautiful to you. The same is true with literature, and well, if we don't accept that, we will only be constantly disappointed and angry and miserable. And that will be very sad indeed. Third, to explore other cultures and beliefs. History, anthropology, and religious studies provide a method of learning about the culture and beliefs of others from the outside looking in. Literature, on the other hand, provide learning from the inside looking out. One example that I can give you for this is the movie The Duchess, starring Keira Knightley. The movie depicted how society in their time put pressure on women to choose grooms who can actually provide well for them and give them a good name in society. But the relationship is just for the sake of that, their name. And it lacked the depth that the Duchess always longed for. I don't want to spoil the movie for you, so just watch it. Anyway, in watching the movie, we are given a glimpse of how people lived in the past, from the inside looking out, like you are there, you were a part of that story. Because we read and watch about not just what happened and where, but also how the characters felt. At first, we might think it's really glamorous and that she's really lucky to be a duchess, to be royal. But behind the title and the wealth and the fame are obligations and sacrifices that one has to adhere to because it is a part of tradition and culture. So, in reading or watching, we get to have an insider edition into their experiences, culture, and beliefs, which we will not be able to have if we read those from history books. Fourth, to appreciate why individuals are the way they are. In our own culture, we find an infinite variety of attitudes and personalities, hatreds and prejudices and assumptions. We are different from others. We have to accept that. Accepting this fact makes us more tolerant of people regardless of whatever their background may be, which gives us little room for disappointment because we already know and have accepted that they are different from us, and they do things differently than we do. This also enables us to appreciate our differences because life would be boring without variety. Fifth, to expand our grasp of the machinations of history. History and literature are inextricably intertwined. History is not just names and dates and politics and wars and power. Whatever happened in history is reflected in our literature. In the movie version of Frances Hodgson Burnett's novel A Little Princess, Sarah was sent to boarding school because her father was bound for World War I. It was a time when able men would leave their families to defend the cause of their country, never certain if they would be coming back. What happened in history then was used as a setting for the movie, and we are able to see how people lived with the war looming over the horizon, most especially the plight of a young girl being sent to boarding school whose father had to leave for the war, and her having the possibility of being an orphan. With this, we are again given details in history that we never would have known from a history book. Sixth, to exercise our brains. Our brains need exercise just like our bodies do. How do we exercise our brains when we read literature? It is when we analyze simple details that give more meaning to the piece, like why Rowling chose the name Severus Snape for a character, why a piece of thread was used instead of a ribbon, or why a character had to die. There was this one time when I read a novel, Before I Fall, written by Lauren Oliver, that upon finishing I could not get over it for days, and I had to wonder about my existence and my significance and why things happen to people. Literature affects us that way, and that's really one of the reasons why I fell in love with reading. Seventh, to teach us to see individual bias. To err is human, to verify is necessary. The original saying was, to err is human, to forgive is divine. But we have changed that so we mean something else, and that is for us to verify first before we ever make a mistake, especially in our judgment. I read a quote that once said there are 3 sides to a story: your side, their side, and the truth. This teaches us that before we believe the only side of the story we heard and judge the other party, let us first try to hear the other side. On the other hand, why would you even meddle with the affairs of others? Get a life! Eighth, to encourage us to question accepted knowledge. As children, most of us were taught to believe what we were told, and those basic hypotheses provide our schemas or building blocks of knowledge. As we grow, we learn to question some ideas, while rejecting the offensively alien ideas outright, often without real examination. We learn to ask when we grow older. We no longer buy the "because I said so" card, but we ask and we verify. Literature opens our minds to ideas. Adults learn to screen through all the information they read about and retain only what they think is significant. Ninth, to help us to see ourselves as others do. Literature is a tool of self-examination. You will see your own personality or habits or assumptions on literature. This is one of the reasons why young females fawn over the male characters they read about in novels. They see themselves in the female characters. She could be the demure, shy type kind of girl, but strong-willed and has a fire inside of her. Tell me I'm not the only one. I tried to write a novel before, and every time I would read the female character's dialogue, I always imagined myself saying the same lines, unknowingly projecting what I wished were me into a female character who found, puppy love in a male character who was also projected to be the guy I hoped I would find in the future. I know, naive. Okay. So anyway, when we see ourselves in the literatures that we read, we are able to reflect on what we are as a person, our choices and decisions, our attitudes and beliefs, and we somehow get to improve on areas of our life that needs work. All because we were able to relate to some characters and gain learnings and realizations on what our life could be if we did the same things they did or not. 10th, to appreciate the contribution literature has made to history. The pen is mightier than the sword. Ideas on ink make much more of an impact than violence. Words can influence and inspire. Writing strengthens people, and the words that we write to other people, when expressed well, can move them. The pen has the ability to touch hearts and influence minds, and that is one power that the sword could never have. If you have not yet seen the movie The Dead Poets Society, then you are missing a part of your life as an English major. Go watch it. 11th, to further our mastery of language. Study of literature hones our language skills and teaches us new and valuable techniques for communication. I have told you this before, that one of the things that developed my love for the English language is reading. The genre that I kept reading in the past is popular teen fiction Sweet Valley High. I was not able to read all of the books, but I was able to read enough to have adopted the way the teenagers in the series spoke to each other. And because my friends were fond of books too and were able to read the same material, guess how we spoke to each other? Exactly like how the teenage Americans in SV talk to each other. Well, not always, not in public, where people could hear us and think that we were snotty little brats. But you can see there how literature was able to help us develop our knowledge and usage of the English language. It's really cool, you should try it. 12th, to recognize language devices and appreciate their emotional power. Like good music, poetry uses wordplay, rhythm, and sounds to will the reader into an emotional force and therein deliver the message. To give you an idea of what this means, let me read to you an excerpt from the children's novel The White Deer by James Thurber. If you should walk and wind and wander far enough on one of those afternoons in April, when smoke goes down instead of up, and nearby things sound far away and far things near, you are more likely to come at last to the enchanted forest that lies between the Moonstone Mines and Centaur's Mountain. You'll know the woods when you're still a long way off, by virtue of a fragrance you can never quite forget and never quite remember. Okay, that's it. Well, in the said excerpt, the way the words were written is simple, but magical. Sort of like you are taken to that place being described. And the only way that you will be able to go back to your world is when you have finished the book and wake up from the dream. Or is it just me? Should I tell you to post your thoughts in the comment section? Just kidding. 13th, to express ethical complexities. Literature forces readers to challenge their simplistic ethical conceptions. In your social sciences class, you were taught that ethics is the knowledge of right and wrong. Literature presents us with situations that would challenge our ethical ideals and ideas. In a declamation piece that was entitled Guilty or Not Guilty, we are presented with an ethical predicament. Let me read to you another excerpt, a dialogue spoken by a child who was caught stealing bread. I will tell you how it was, sir. My mother and father are dead, and my little brothers and sisters are hungry and ask me for bread. At first, I earned it for them by working hard all day. But somehow the times were hard, sir, and the work all fell away. I could get no more employment. The weather was bitter and cold. The young ones cried and shivered. So, what was I to do, sir? I am guilty, but do not condemn. I took... Oh, was it stealing? The bread to give to them. So, if you were the judge, was the child guilty or not guilty? 14th, to see the admirable in everyday life. We are surrounded by unsung nobility and sacrifice. Once we learn to see it in the actions of common folk, our lives will be forever richer, as will our faith in humanity itself. We are oftentimes immersed in our own lives, always thinking of what we would eat, how we would survive, where we're heading, how we are feeling. And on the moments that we think about our cares, it is rare that we also get to think about the plight of others. But when we read in literature the selflessness of others, we sometimes get inspired to do the same thing. Have you ever had that experience? Let us just hope that we get to act on those noble feelings before the fire dies out. 15th, to learn better ways to behave. Literature teaches us better courses of action. One of the benefits mentioned earlier was that literature is like a mirror where we get to see ourselves. If you have read Jose Garcia Villa's Footnote to Youth, and during that time, for example, you were in a relationship that you thought would last forever, which is why you also gave everything that you could to that relationship, you will have been able to relate to the main character's situation. But if you were a girl and you didn't get pregnant yet, you would have sighed in relief. Now, there are two courses of action that you could take. You could either go on with, getting on with a guy who claims to love you but apparently does not love you enough to think of your future, or you could realize that there are other things that you need to prioritize other than your lustful desires for each other, 16th, to know we are not alone. Others have been where we are, have felt as we felt, have believed as we believed. Paradoxically, we are unique, just like everyone else. C.S. Lewis said that we read to know that we are not alone. So, if you think that you are solitary in the struggles that you are currently going through, believe me, others have been there. I have been there. I know you might feel that nobody understands, that nobody cares, that they might think you're just acting up or you have your period or something. But many people actually go through similar adversities. It's just that we sometimes don't want to talk about it, and we are only confident to tell the people that we trust. The dominant or perfectionist personality types also often do not want to tell others what they are going through because we think that we can solve this all by ourselves. Well, the gentle supportive types do not tell because they don't want to be a burden to others. Whichever you are feeling, please know that you are not alone. 17th, to refine our judgment. This involves several aspects of reading: exposure to new ideas and new ways of looking at old assumptions, expanded vocabulary, and understand and improve ability to write. Well, this is self-explanatory, which will lead us to our next slide. 18th, to learn to support our points of view and trust our own interpretations. We provide evidence for our interpretation of a story or poem when we explain it. Have you ever had an experience when you were asked to recite in class what you thought was the interpretation of a line in literature or a piece of literature? Well, in reading, we learn how to defend our opinions. We learn how to give supporting details to the points that we wish to make. Leading us to a previous benefit of studying literature, we get to refine our judgment by reading literature. 19th, to develop empathy for those who are unlike us. Since we have said that we are unique just like everyone else, and that we have to be open to differing opinions and ideas, it is by reading literature that we also get to accept that not everyone is the same in the way they look, the way they feel, their ideals, and their beliefs. Realizing this, we get to develop empathy, putting ourselves in others' shoes to know what they must feel so that we could better understand them. And if we can't understand them, then the most we could do is to tolerate them. 20th, to expand our vocabularies. Well, again, this is very self-explanatory. So that's it for the benefits of reading literature. I hope that this inspires you to read more. I know that times are difficult, but I hope that in reading, you somehow find clarity, peace, serenity, and that you will not stop reading and be inspired by it.